Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. Bled Castle. Bled Castle in Slovenia is a spectacular place with a history dating all the way back to the year 1004. That was when the German king Henry II handed the estate of Bled over to the bishops of Brixen. There was nothing but a singular Romanesque tower protected by a small wall at the location of the current castle. It wasn't until 1011 that the bishops began erecting the castle for defense. It ended up being their residence for 800 years. In the Middle Ages, more towers were built, and the fortifications became more advanced. Other buildings were constructed inside the castle. A pair of courtyards were added, and a chapel was built in the upper courtyard. The castle was even given a moat with a fancy drawbridge installed as the only way in or out. Improvements continued all the way into the 18th century, when the interior of the castle was filled with frescoes. Bled Castle is the oldest and some would argue the most impressive castle in all of Slovenia. Number 9. The city in the Tigris River. In 2022, a team of German archaeologists uncovered an unbelievable lost city at the bottom of the Tigris River. This city goes back 3,400 years to the ancient Mitanni Empire and was revealed thanks to an extreme drought in Iraq. The settlement has been sitting unknown to anyone at the bottom of the Mosul Reservoir, only seen now because the water levels have fallen so dramatically. But this wasn't just a small settlement, it was an extensive city, complete with massive buildings, a huge royal palace, and winding streets. Archaeologists believe this might just be the ancient lost city of Zakiku, which was probably a major political center between 1550 and 1350 BC. The city was likely only submerged a few decades ago, but because there weren't extensive archaeological operations happening in Iraq, nobody realized it was there. But now that we do know it's here, archaeologists are trying to beat the clock to do as much research as they can before water levels rise and the ancient city is submerged once again. There is now a joint operation between German archaeologists and the Kurdistan Archaeology Organization to learn as much as they can in the coming months. What researchers are doing now is mapping the city. They've already located the main palace, a huge fortification of walls and towers that once surrounded this place, and a mysterious industrial complex. The complex is a multi-story building that appears to have been used for storage, perhaps for food. As for the people who lived here, the Mitanni Empire was a huge player in ancient Mesopotamia for about 200 years. They controlled a massive part of northern Mesopotamia and Syria, but were wiped off the map about 3,300 years ago. This city looks like it may have been destroyed suddenly in an earthquake, right at the time the civilization fell apart. Archaeologists know this because they found collapsed parts of buildings resembling other prehistoric cities that were ruined in natural disasters. Number 8. Theodosian Walls. The Theodosian Walls were built as a series of fortifications outside Constantinople, the capital city of the Byzantine Empire. The walls were first constructed during the reign of the powerful ruler Theodosius II, sometime around 408 to 450 AD, and they are still standing. Most people don't even know these walls exist, and yet they were a remarkable achievement for the ancient Byzantines. These walls were so important that they prevented Constantinople from being sieged by the empire's enemies for over 800 years. These walls turned Constantinople into an impregnable fortress. They were the largest and strongest walls anywhere in the ancient or medieval world. They resisted earthquakes and attacks, kept out the Arabs, and are still standing strong in the modern city of Istanbul. This city had fairly decent fortifications prior to these walls. When Constantine I changed the capital from Rome to Constantinople, ending the Roman Empire and bringing to life the Eastern Roman Empire, he did his best to blockade the city. But it was Theodosius II who had a vision for a city hidden within unbreakable walls. The main gate was an astounding 30 feet high, guarded by 2 massive towers. The whole thing was decorated with statues decked out with enormous sculptures of chariots being pulled by elephants. And while much of this splendor is gone, it was still once one of the greatest sights in the entire ancient world. Number 7. The secret Maya city. In 2018, archaeologists discovered the ruins of a lost Maya city on the Yucatan Peninsula. Since then, they've been busy restoring the site, which they've called Sheol. The name Xiol translates from Mayan to English as Spirit of Man. The city was built starting in the year 600 and was occupied for at least 300 years. It boasted an impressive main square, a huge pyramid in the central plaza, magnificent palaces, huge residential areas for the citizens, ancient workshops, grave sites, and much more that still hasn't even been uncovered. The site was only found by accident when construction workers stumbled upon it during work at a nearby industrial park outside the city of Mérida. What's really cool about this ancient Maya city is that it had its very own cenote, a sinkhole filled with water. Usually the Maya built their cities near large cenotes, which they associated with gateways to the underworld. For that reason, it's a pleasant change to see one of these cenotes actually inside the walls of a city. It's likely that the sinkhole had been used in rituals and ceremonies. Archaeologists even discovered the remains of 76 plinths, small foundational base pillars, suggesting there was a massive religious temple here. The city probably housed about 4,000 people, and it appears to have been a major site for religious activity, probably occupied mostly by priests, scribes, and a handful of commoners. Number 6. The Hanging Coffins. In China's Guizhou province, there is a dark, mysterious place hidden out in the countryside. On the edges of a great winding river, suspended 100 feet up the side of a limestone cliff at the entrance of a spooky cave, there are about 30 caskets anchored to the rock. These are the Hanging Coffins of China, and they've been there for untold centuries. The entire area is littered with fragments of lost cloth from the dead, pieces of bone that have sifted through the caskets, and shattered ceramics. For the past 30 years, Hong Kong explorer Wong Hao Man has been investigating the coffins to learn more about the unusual burial custom. Wong started his career with National Geographic as a journalist. In 1985, he trekked deep into the region of the Yangtze River and came across a group of these coffins perched over 300 feet up the side of a cliff. He was instantly obsessed. The strange thing about these coffins is that they are everywhere. There is no one particular site, as they are spread all throughout the country. Nobody knows how many hanging coffins there are in total. We only know that they can be found in at least 5 Chinese provinces, with the oldest being in the province of Fujian and dating back 3,000 years. Even after 30 years of research, Wang still doesn't know the point behind the burials, or how such a practice became so widespread in the ancient world. Old literature from the Tang dynasty says that the higher the coffins were placed, the greater the piety of the deceased. Some experts believe they were simply fixed to the sides of cliffs to keep the bodies from being picked apart by animals. It makes sense that the higher the coffin, the closer you are to heaven. Number 5. The ancient city of Haran. For those familiar with the Bible, you might recognize the city of Haran from the story of Abraham and his family. But what you might not know is that this city is an actual place, currently little more than a ruin in southeastern Turkey. It's just a few miles from the border of Syria, in a small patch of green in an otherwise barren landscape. There is a small collection of ruins here from various ages. There is a ruined church, the broken Umayyad Great Mosque, and the stubby walls that once guarded Haran, now separating it from the modern city beyond. Long ago, the city started out as a gathering place for caravans. This was where travelers and wandering merchants would stop on their way through the region. But over the years, it became larger, wealthier, and was fought over by several empires. This city was once occupied by the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Romans, and even the Mongols. One of the oldest structures is the Temple of Sin, the old Mesopotamian moon god. Archaeologists believe people traveled from all over Mesopotamia back in the days of the Sumerians just to worship at this temple during the 3rd millennium BC. Number 4. Secret underground chamber. While building a house in Turkey, the crew realized they were working above something ancient. When they broke through the ground, they found an old chamber. But instead of alerting the local authorities, they dug even deeper, hoping to come up with ancient artifacts they could sell. Luckily, the authorities figured out what was happening. The people were stopped before they could do any damage, and archaeologists came in to see what they were dealing with. The crew had uncovered a mysterious historical site 3,000 years old, a secret chamber hidden underground from the days of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Deep inside the chamber, archaeologists discovered a mysterious stone panel. The panel was carved with inscriptions in Aramaic and showed a procession of ancient Aramaean gods. One of these gods is the storm lord Hadad, depicted with a lightning trident. Then there's the goddess Atargatis, who was the Assyrian version of Mother Earth. We don't really know what the chamber was designed to be. It was found underneath the foundation of the house that was being built, little more than a cavern carved out of the limestone bedrock. The relic had been covered over and lost for thousands of years. The stone tablet found inside was never finished, with only the upper parts of the gods carved into it. This had probably been intended as some kind of shrine, but for whatever reason, it was never completed. Number 3. Ships beneath San Francisco. In San Francisco, hidden under the city streets, there is an entire graveyard of old ships that most people know nothing about. Under the sidewalks is a historical site that can't be accessed unless the entire city is uprooted. The site is under the streetcars and thousands of walking pedestrians buried under the financial district. But just what exactly is under there? According to the San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park, dozens and dozens of buried ships. Ships that brought prospectors to the city in the 19th century, hoping to cash in on the California gold rush. Many of these ships, after dropping off their gold-obsessed miners, ended up being abandoned. Then, much later, they were covered over by landfills and blanketed with pavement when the city grew in the late 1800s. It may be hard to see it now, but much of San Francisco was underwater. For example, the area of Market Street was called Yerba Buena Cove, with the shoreline extending all the way to the Transamerica Pyramid. Even though this looks like a perfectly modern city, there is a whole graveyard of ancient history and broken ships hiding underneath. Number 2. Tomb skeletons. Berenice Troglodytica was once a port city on the edge of the Red Sea in Egypt. This was about 1,500 years ago, and just recently a group of Polish archaeologists have discovered a mysterious tomb complex in this forgotten place. Within the tomb, they found 7 individuals who were buried inside stone boxes. The skeletons were laid to rest with their legs crossed over their chests, an extremely unusual position to be buried in during any era of human civilization. According to Dr. Marius Gvadzia, the skeletons would have needed to be bound with a rope in order to maintain their position. The rope would have been tied around their neck and legs, kind of folding the people over themselves. The result, 1,500 years later, is pretty ghoulish. For example, one burial was a mother and child, with both their legs folded onto their chests in such a gruesome way that the bodies appeared to be fused together. Based on the burial goods and artifacts also found in the tombs, these people were probably elite members of society. They may have been members of a mysterious tribe in the eastern desert called the Blemies. Based on writings from the Greek historian Agatharchides of Cnidus, we know the Blemies, between the 4th and 6th centuries, used string to fold the corpses of the dead into a crouching position, and this is similar to what was found in this tomb. Number 1. The Pyramids of Tenerife. Tenerife in the Canary Islands is a popular holiday destination. Tourists visit the island every year, but most of them are unaware that there are pyramids hiding away from the tourist towns. Pyramids that are so mysterious, we don't know when they were built, who built them, or what their purpose was. These are the Pyramids of Guimar, which is a town in the south of Tenerife. They are hidden away in the ethnographic park and missed by a lot of tourists who vacation on the island. The pyramids were discovered in 1990 by the Norwegian adventurer Thor Heyerdahl. He was amazed because the pyramids look much like other stepped pyramids from around the world, from places like Egypt and Central America. It was his belief that the Guanches cultures, the people who lived in the Canary Islands before the Spanish came, built the pyramids. He also believes that they may have served as some kind of link between Egypt and Central America, explaining how similar pyramids wound up all over the world. However, nobody knows for sure. More recently, academics have suggested that the pyramids were made as recently as the 19th century, and they aren't even pyramids, but piles of volcanic rocks left behind by farmers when they were clearing the land. Many experts believe that's nonsense because these are legitimate structures with perfectly even walls and obvious artificial design, not just piles of rubble. They clearly have some ceremonial purpose because it's been confirmed that the terraces of the pyramids are marked to align with the winter and summer solstices. Thanks for watching! Which of these places would you like to visit? Or have you visited already? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!